This Link ECU project is definitely one of the most fun things I've ever done. It's challenging, and what you get at the end is really unique. You've got an ability to tune the car in a way that you've never had before, which allows you to make the car run the way you've always wanted it to do. And for me, I get some discovery time that is unlike anything I've ever done before. The learning curve is just a little bit steep in the beginning, and as soon as you get over that, the whole world opens up to you. This is Bryson's car. He found it, traded a dirt bike for it, kind of got it running, and then he left town. He's out serving a mission for the church where he shares the gospel of Jesus Christ with people in another area. And while he's gone, I get to play with the car. Let's be clear, I'm clearly no tuning expert. I would never pretend to be. But the results are nothing short of astounding. I don't know if my experience is typical, but I enjoyed every part of this project. The planning and the mapping and then the wiring and all of the connections. And in the end, what I've got is something that's so incredibly highly tunable that I did not even fathom what I would be able to accomplish with this thing. I'm thrilled with the results. And what I believe I have right now is a fairly good street tune. There are two things happening right here. One is that the warm-up correction is in place to the tune of about now 48%. Now you'll see as it warms up, some of these will settle in. We're still enriched because of the warm-up. We're only up to 118 engine coolant temperature, which puts us up in the 12, almost 13 lambda range. The car has gone from running rich all of the time, not starting on its own when it's hot, and while running pretty well, nothing compared to what it's doing now. The car runs smooth, it starts all the time without problem, and the AFRs are in a range that I don't think it's ever had before. Ha! That just figures, doesn't it? No playing today. The smell from the exhaust has gone way down. It used to be that if I left this car idle in the garage for even just a few seconds, I smelled like two-stroke fumes for the rest of the day. Which, look, is okay with me, but the wife didn't care for it too much. The fuel map is now coming into line where I think it should be. I'm idling in the 13.5 range. I'm cruising at maybe 14. And as the manifold pressure goes up, the air-fuel ratio goes down all the way down to about high 10s, low 11s, at really high load. There are still a few fuel cells in there that I'd like to round out, but I'm doing that one step at a time. In fact, the entire tuning effort was done manually. I went out for a really lazy ride in the beginning, and then I would go out for the next one and bump up the RPM 500 or maybe 1,000 revolutions and come back and review the mixture map and change the fuel map where appropriate to dial things in right where I wanted them. And then I would go find a way to raise the load one step higher and dial all of that in, and then I would go back and raise the RPMs again and raise the load again. And so I'm working my way through the fuel table one row and one column at a time until I finally got the thing to where it really is pretty good, right? Some fine tuning can still be done, and if I put it on a dyno, I'm sure that they can get more power out of it between the ignition map and the fuel map. But the air-fuel ratios are checking out. I'm not getting any detonation. And on a rotary, my understanding is that you don't chase power with ignition timing. While there is some power to be gained, please don't misunderstand, the biggest bang for your buck in a rotary is with manifold pressure, where you make sure that you're adequately controlling the boost, which, by the way, is another little interesting find. After I ported the wastegate on this car, I was still getting boost creep up into about 10 psi range, which, when you think about it, it's not a surprise. It took 10 pounds to fully open the wastegate. It would crack at about 5 or 6 pounds, fully open at about 10. So having the boost go up to 10 was not a terrible surprise, although I would like to be able to control it down lower. Well, guess what? As I'm reviewing the wiring and shifting things around under the hood, I saw that I had connected the vacuum lines to the boost controller incorrectly. I had followed the instructions for an external wastegate. This car, of course, has an internal wastegate. Now, exactly why that made the difference, I don't know, but I will tell you that it is different. If I turn the boost controller off, I peak out at about 5.5, maybe 6 pounds of boost pressure. So now, I'm thrilled with where that ended up, because my boost controller has an off, a low, and a high setting. So I've got the high setting at about 80%, which allows the boost to go up to 10 pounds. The low setting's at about 30%, puts the boost up around 7 pounds, and I turn the thing off, I'm down to 5 or 6 pounds. That's perfect. I've got the control over the boost that I really want. Some people have asked why I went with the Link. Well, the story is short and the result is positive. The short story is bang for the buck. I was considering the Haltech for quite a while, probably the Elite 1500. I know the 750 might have been adequate as well, but the 1500 seemed to be the sweet spot where people were landing for this car. So when you price that out, you're pushing $1,800 or so for the ECU, and then you need another $400 or $500 for a basic loom. If you want to buy a terminated loom, it's closer to $1,500. So you're anywhere from about maybe $2,000 up to pushing $3,000 for the core parts. There are a handful of other things that also have to be done when you go to a standalone ECU. For example, the trailing coil needs to be replaced. I chose to replace the TPS, maybe not necessary, but felt like I wanted a sensor that would govern the complete range of the throttle travel. But that stuff is probably the same cost regardless of what direction you choose to go. So the big difference is you can get a Haltech with its loom at its cheapest for about $2,200. In contrast, I bought the Monsoon X from Link for $985, and the A-loom to go on it was $150. So I'm looking at about $1,100 instead of $2,200 for half the money, and I believe I'm getting everything that I need out of it. I think I did get everything I need out of it. Why not? That was actually the revelatory moment that allowed me to pull the trigger. When I realized I could do the thing for closer to $1,000, all in about $1,300 versus $2,200 all in at what, $2,500, $2,600. So yeah, you cut the price in half, things start to look pretty interesting. That was really the driver. That's how I got where I am. Now that I'm there and recognizing that I've never played with Haltech, so I really can't compare the two very well, I'm thrilled with the Link. It has rotary specific configuration items in it. It's got extensive documentation in it, including how to set up the rotary. Some of the tricky things like cam sensor versus the cast that's in the rotary engine. The online community of people and tuners that are using the Link ECU is more than adequate. I was able to get answers to all the questions. I guess my only gripe with the thing was that I didn't see a base map for the 13B FC Mazda RX7. That said, I haven't seen a base map for any other ECU for this car either. So what I had to do was use a base map from an FD motor as kind of a starting point, and then mess with it a little bit from there, using the audible tuners, using the gauges, and whatever else I could find to dial things in. But the number of connections in it, the ability to make the outputs and the inputs and everything do exactly what I wanted it to do was spot on. So I have no regrets whatsoever going with the Link. Now, would I have been equally happy with the Haltech? It's possible, and I recognize that. I'm sure the Haltech is just fine. I played with the software from both the Link and the Haltech, and admittedly, I like the user interface of the Haltech a little better. Now that I've messed with the PC Link, I'm fine with it, and I have, again, no concerns. It does everything that I want it to do, but I do think that the user interface case is a little nicer on the Haltech. So I will tell you what I've been doing recently is driving the car every day. Call it daily driver, and it hasn't let me down. It starts every time I want it to start. It runs fantastic. It's so incredibly smooth. I thought it was running pretty well before I took the other ECU out. It was powerful, it pulled hard, and really it ran just fine. Now, man, it's so clean. I am just now getting to a point where I feel like I can relax with this car. You know how when you're not quite sure how things are running, you're on a constant state of alert, your eyes are peeled, your ears are wide open, you're feeling and listening and doing whatever you can to identify whatever kind of a problem there might be and catch it early. I've been in that mode for the last, well, a couple of weeks, I guess. And I'm just now getting to a point where I feel like I can relax. Everything's running fine. I still listen and I still watch, and I know that I've got some improvements that I can make. But it's running so clean that I'm finally sitting back and relaxing and just enjoying the moment. The car handles beautifully. Coming in around these corners in the canyon makes you want to downshift, grab a gear, kick in the turbo, spin it up, and zip around the corner at 80 miles an hour. I won't do that because I don't want to put anybody else at risk. But it kind of begs for some racetrack time. It really is a unique experience. The rotary just has a different feel to it, and I don't know how to explain it. You kind of have to feel it. The car itself sits so low, it's so short, and hugs the road so well that it begs for some fast, tight cornering. Well, she handled that without missing a beat. What's not to love? It's running smooth, it's running clean. Here we are at the top of Big Cottonwood Canyon. This is Bryson Ski Resort. It looks like they must be done for the year. I think their last day was Saturday.